What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Broad Street Boys podcast. I am 444 Philly fan.
I'm Tim Talks Philly, and we got a lot of good stuff to talk about so far. A few weeks here into spring training, players now reporting over to the World Baseball Classic. So we're going to have a little bit more action out of some of the back end of the Phillies roster. But so far, some really good things. We've got to see Trey Turner, which was the highly anticipated player in this spring, and he's played really well. I guess we can get started with him. I mean, you were down there? What are your early impressions of Trey Turner?
Yeah, of course, the one game I go see, and the one game that Trey Turner does play, he goes 0 for 3 with two strikeouts and a fly out to center. Of course, the only time he struck out pretty much all spring is when I'm there. And then he didn't play the second game. But, just you could tell that the players around him just enjoy him being team like not being on the Dodgers anymore. Like you could tell, like he brings a breath, just like kind of Schwarber did. Like as soon as he walked out of the tunnel and walked onto the field to do his warm ups, everybody's going towards him. All the fans are cheering. Every time he gets announced, the fans are going crazy. It's like Bryce Harper esque. Probably not as big because Bryce Harper is just Bryce Harper, but Trey Turner is the closest thing that we will have to a Bryce Harper. So, it was awesome just to see him actually play, baseball for the first time in a Phillies uniform. And, you know, 0 for 3 probably won't happen much with Trey Turner. So it was awesome to watch him play.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Bryce Harper comparison, and it's actually really interesting. You get a guy like Bryce Harper who obviously hits a little bit more for power, so it's really exciting for a lot of players. But at the end of the day, even when you were signing Bryce Harper, there's a lot of question. Oh, is he the best right fielder in the game? I think it's pretty clear that Trey Turner is the best shortstop in the game. So it's kind of crazy when you think about the differences. I think when you signed Bryce Harper, we had really nobody else. That was our first big name. Now you bring Trey Turner, and it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like Trey Turner's also on this team. I mean, how amazing is that? You got Bryce Harper, you got Kyle Schwarber, JT Romuto, Nick Castellanos. Obviously hasn't had a great start, but just so many names on this team that you add Trey Turner, and then every now and then you got to pinch yourself and be like, wow, Trey Turner's on the Philadelphia Phillies. But yeah, I mean, he's been as advertised. He's got, just a beautiful swing, so quick through the zone, so fast. I mean, we've only got to see him on the base pass for a couple games here, but I think he's only got one stolen base. But I mean, just such a great base runner, such a good fielder. And I mean, come on, just the perfect leadoff hitter for this team. And I think his first couple of outings here in that leadoff spot have shown that that's the direction Rob Thompson's going to go in.
Yeah, and you know, there's only been one or two games where Schwarber has been in that leadoff spot, and it was on the back end of a second game where Trey Turner's not going to suit up, and obviously with the World Baseball Classic starting last night and Team USA starting on Saturday, uh, that concludes Trey Turner, JT, Schwarber, and a couple other guys, from spring training. That's it for them. So we will now be watching them in competitive baseball, which I think is good for Schwarber especially. I know, like, a little off topic, but Kyle Schwarber had a rough April last year, and now with competitive baseball, we could get June Schwarber a little bit early. But watching what I've seen so far from the guys, that World Baseball Classic, everything is just as advertised as you said. And Trey Turner looks amazing, and Kyle Schwarber will get his, and JT, and it's gonna be fun to watch the World Baseball Classic with a lot of our guys in it from all different countries.
Yeah, we won't really touch too much on Kyle Schwarber. Hasn't had the best start, but yeah, hopefully get to see him get high. I mean, he had the home run, and what was that, his last game that he's played?
Yeah,
Spring
against
training,
Toronto.
maybe the one before, but was able to finally get one together. Was it No, he didn't hit a home run. It was a double, right?
He hit one
I'm
against
trying.
Toronto.
Okay,
two-run
okay. I
shot.
think I think his first hit ended up being a double, and then he might have put one out. But yeah,
Yeah,
being able to see him kind of heat up there at the end, thank goodness he started off really, really slow. But yeah, like you said, you're able to get him in some competitive baseball a little bit earlier. Hopefully his hot streak will start a little bit earlier for us. But yeah, it's going to give us a lot of time to check out some of these younger guys that have been making a push. I mean, you got you got some interesting talent out in the outfield. Not a whole, and a couple guys even in the infield that you're going to see get some reps over at shortstop. So I think as much as it stinks having these guys head out, we're not going to be able to watch them with the Phillies. We're still going to be able to watch them over the World Baseball Classic, and we're also going to be able to get a look at some of our younger guys, even more so than we've been able to see this first couple of weeks here.
yeah, for sure. And I'm like, also excited to see some of the younger guys get in there. So
Yeah, definitely. But the other big topic, I guess we'll start with just him before we get into the fifth starter race. But still no update on Andrew Painter here. A little bit of tenderness in his elbow reported by Rob Thompson, and I at this point I guess they're just looking for second opinions here. They're saying they have high hopes. They just want to take it easy with him. He's a young arm, a very talented arm. They don't want to just rush him back into things. But a little worrisome. We haven't heard anything yet. I'm not going to overreact yet, but just it would be our luck, him being hurt when he's supposed to make a big debut this season. So nothing so far from Rob Thompson. Hopefully we'll get something in a couple days, but man, I need to hear something about Andrew Painter.
yeah, and you know, it happened while I was down there. So I'm sitting there in the lawn, and I get the update on my phone that Andrew Painter's not getting tested with his elbow, and obviously we don't have the greatest luck of highly talented prospects with any sport here. Always something wrong. Embiid, Simmons at the time, Painter, Nolan Patrick at the time. But again, it's not. I'm sure if something was that serious with Painter, they would have came out by now and said, "Oh, like we're gonna shut him down for the spring," or they haven't said anything like that. So I'm gonna be optimistic about this and hope for the best. But it first time pitching in a major league game. Obviously he wants to really show what he's got, and he was in the high 90s every pitch. So maybe he just did something to it. I don't know. It's nothing to overreact to until it is. But as of right now, I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, and I mean he only had the one outing there, but we've seen a little bit more than that from Bailey Falter, and those are really the two guys that we're expecting to compete for that fifth starter spot. In our first episode, we mentioned Rob Thompson talking about Michael Plasmeyer having a role, and he's played really well, which we'll get to later. But so far, I think when you talk about Andrew Painter and Bailey Falter, it comes down to, is Painter ready? Is he not performance wise, in my opinion? If he looks like, now we know if he's healthy, he would have to take the role. But if he just looks like he's mature enough, he's ready to face these big league batters, it's going to be his job. And Falter really hasn't done anything other, outside of that to win the job over for himself. I could see a possible, six-man rotation going on a little bit, kind of rotating between Andrew Painter and Bailey Falter, especially with this injury news for Painter. But Falter hasn't been too impressive. I believe a little over 3 innings, 6 hits allowed. He's, hasn't really been anything outing. I believe it was the Red Sox. Didn't have he faced two lefties and wasn't able to get either of them out. I mean, that's kind of your bread and butter as a left-handed pitcher. So not a great start so far from Falter. But what are your views so far of that fifth spot in the lineup, the race there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you, and I think that all Phillies fans, including Rob Thompson, kind of agree with, if Andrew Painter is ready to go, he will go. And Painter or Falter, he was good at the back end of last season. He fell apart in the playoffs, so don't love it if we have to go with Falter as a five. But obviously, we already have done that before, and it paid off. And hindsight, but we want to see Andrew Painter, and I think that Andrew Painter is the better of the two. It's just going to come down to health, and if Painter's healthy by game 5 of the season, I think he goes. But again, we'll have to wait and see, which just sucks that he was so talked about all off season, and now we have to worry about if he's even going to be healthy enough to be on the opening day roster.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, the Phillies kind of set themselves up for this. There was a few names you could have went out and gone and gotten as that definite. Hey, this is going to be your fifth starter. Some veteran options and free agency that we decided against, but it was because of this. They really kind of expected Andrew Painter to come up and take that role, and they said, hey, if he's not ready, if something happens, Bailey, they trust Bailey Falter. But again, there's going to be a lot more to talk about this. It's just going to come down to the next couple of days. Hopefully, not the next couple of weeks, but whenever we get this update on Andrew Painter from Rom Thompson. Now, switching over to some more exciting stuff, something that has been my favorite part to tune into all these games is the Phillies' third baseman, Alec Bohm. I mean, man, what a start to this spring for him. Just absolutely crushing the baseball. Only has one strikeout on the spring, and he's just tearing the cover off. He's got what, 3 home runs now? He's 7 for 20, 6 RBIs, 1 walk. He is taking tremendous steps in the right direction here, which we were coming into this season hoping he can be a solid maybe 6 guy in the lineup. Now he's looking more of like a 4 hitter.
Yeah, and look, you're you hit it on the head. Bohm has just been mashing the ball, and the one game that I did go to where Bohm played, I mean, I was telling people like Bohm's gonna get a hit, like he's going to hit the ball, and what happens? He hits a single in the first inning. He comes back up later and around the third, fourth inning, goes opposite field home run. And then even yesterday, I mean, we're playing. I don't remember who we were playing. I think the Orioles. He goes dead center with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we all heard the rumors, and we've seen this before in Philadelphia, where they say some people might say stuff and then it just never comes true. But when they said Alec Bohm added 15 pounds of muscle, the way he's been hitting the ball, it actually looks like he's been
It's showing.
adding 15 pounds of muscle. And even fielding, he looks more confident. I mean, he had a backhander a couple days ago where he backhanded it, was almost into foul territory, and still just stood up, planted his back foot, and fired it over the first before the guy could get there. And he's just looked comfortable. He looks comfortable out there. And that might be because of how stacked this lineup truly is. He batted third last year a little bit when Harper was out. And, they put a lot of faith and trust into Alec Bohm. And ever since he said he hated this place, he's been really good. He slaps the ball everywhere. Ever since that moment, he was a much better fielder than before. And look, we drafted him third overall. And we drafted a power hitting third baseman, as a lot of people wanted. And the power is finally showing its face. And if Alec Bohm can hit 20 home runs, 25 home runs, which, isn't, if he keeps doing this, it's not insane to think about. I mean, he gets more plate appearances than anybody. So if he does that, watch out. MLB, watch out. Don't let Alec Bohm start getting hitting for power, because he's already a great contact hitter. We saw that in his rookie year and last year. If he hits for power and he's putting the ball over the fence, it's going to be a bad night for him, especially if he's in your 4, 5, or 6 hole, or even third. Third, who really knows what Harper being out?
Yeah. Yeah, you touch on a few things there, which, obviously a lot of these things are good to hear for Alec Bohm and his success moving forward. But a couple things that are just great for the franchise moving over. One thing you mentioned at the top of my list, his defensive play. I mean, he's just looked so confident out there. All of his plays have been smooth. He's made some really, really difficult plays with the glove and some really hard throws. Hey, if you can lock him up as a solid third baseman, great. If something doesn't work out with contract extensions with Rhys Hoskins, move Alec Bohm over to first base. The glove looks great. That's Rhys Hoskins' biggest issue, is him being able to make a play on the ball. Now all of a sudden you're getting a guy who's improved dramatically as a third baseman with his glove. Throw him over to first base. He's hitting for power now too. That's the second thing there. He's hitting for power. You wanted him to come in and have power, and hey, he was young. He was hitting for contact. A lot of ground balls. But now that looks like it's over. He's driving the ball. Launch angle. It sounds like he's been listening to them chirping launch angle into his ear, because there's not a lot that he's hitting that's going on the ground. He's putting the ball in the gap. Balls are dropping right in front of outfielders because they're hit so hard. He's really looked good. And I think there's so many different options with him, especially you know, with Sosa playing well. You want to put Sosa in at third base one game, guess what? Move Alec Bohm over to first base. You're still going to get a power bat out of that spot. I think this has been a very promising spring so far for Alec Bohm. And we talked about losing a lot of guys this World Baseball Classic. Not him. We're going to be able to get to see him in a Phillies uniform for this spring. And I'm very, very excited to see what he continues to do, because I'm hoping it's not just a little hot streak to start off. I'm hoping this is the Alec Bohm we're going to be seeing this season.
Yeah. Him with power, like it could really get crazy for the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, he hit a home run last year in the World Series, barely went out over the fence. Well, you add 15 pounds of muscle, that ball is flying out of here. It's a no doubter.
Crushed, yeah.
And we all know he can hit. I mean, hitting is not the issue. It was the defense and the power behind his hitting. Yeah, we know Alec Bohm could hit an opposite field single and an opposite field double and a double into the gap. We know that he can do that. He's been doing it since his rookie year. We needed the contact, or we needed the power to go up. And the power is looking like it's showing up, finally. And I'm very excited to watch Alec Bohm for the rest of the spring. Very excited to watch Alec Bohm, play every day third base, just in general, whether it's a DH, first base, third baseman. I mean, he could play any of them. He could be a main factor in any of those three spots in this lineup. And, it's going to be very interesting what Rob Thompson does with Alec Bohm in terms of where he throws him into the lineup. Is he going to put him at the back end? Is he going to put him right in the middle or more towards the front? Who really knows? But, what we have been seeing from Alec Bohm, Phillies fans, you guys should really be truly excited about what we are all witnessing right now with Alec Bohm.
Yeah, and before we move on, you mentioned that his contact's never really been an issue. One strikeout and 20 at bats. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, he's really seeing the ball well. So you're adding this power on with Alec Bohm. If you're getting a guy who's seeing the ball coming in, you're going to be having to watch out for him in the middle of this lineup. But mentioning where he's going to bat kind of brings me to my next guy, Derek Hall, someone I was really excited to see what he could do coming into this spring. Had a rough start, 3 strikeouts in his first game, but since then has been amazing. 6 for 12, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, a double, and only 1 strikeout. So he's going to have some competition in the middle of that lineup. I think right now, Derek Hall hasn't proved anything. He hasn't shown anything that's going to make you say, hey, this guy can't start DH for us, facing righties during the season. So I think so far it's been a really good start for Derek Hall. Even with that lefty worries, he had, I believe it was only 1 lefty start he's played in so far, and walked twice, I believe, and even through, I don't think it was a strikeout. I think he put a ball in play, but didn't look awful. He looked comfortable, and that's the worry. I mean, yeah, you want to see the numbers, but in spring, you want to see how these guys look. 2 great at-bats to start off, and then, all right, he got out once, but he got on base twice. I think a really, really good start so far from Derek Hall. What did you see from him down there?
Yeah, I agree. Again, I mean, he's comfortable now. It looked like with Rhys Hoskins not being there in the start of spring training, they had him out in the field, and he was really trying to settle in. And after that first game, I'm sure Rob Thompson, who has been amazing with the younger guys on this team, he probably pulled him aside and said, "Look, calm down. We know you can hit. We need you. We need you this season. And especially with Harper out of the lineup, you need a lefty power. And Derek Hall, we even saw it last year when nobody even knew who he was. I mean, they called up Derek Hall, and we were like, who's Derek Hall? And he comes in and he starts. He's your four-hole hitter at the time, his first ever game in the major leagues, and he's a very good lefty power bat. He hit a lot of home runs, in the little at bats that he had last year, and we're gonna need that because he probably will be your four-hole hitter against right-handed guys, at least in the start of the season, or until Harper comes back, obviously. But Derek Hall is definitely a piece that he's kind of like a diamond in the rough. I mean, he got hot last season in the minors and got called up, and now he's fighting for a spot, in the roster. And I really don't think he has any shot of losing it as of right now. It doesn't look like. So I think Derek Hall being your four hole or Bohm or switch him wherever you want. Derek Hall has really picked it up big time since that first outing, and he looks good, and
Yeah,
it's
definitely. I
great to
think
see that lefty.
I yeah, definitely. I think he should. I think he should right now be the front runner to be your DH on opening day. Again, we mentioned it depends on whether they're facing a righty or a lefty, but I think he should get some good starts in there. What you just mentioned though, what are your thoughts on that four-hole spot though? I know we kind of came out with our predictions of what the lineup was going to look like earlier, but I think we've seen some big surprises. One that we just talked about with Alec Bohm. Where do you see them? Kind of where do you see Rob Thompson setting up these three guys in Reese Hoskins, Alec Bohm, and Derek Hall going into the season?
Yeah, it's hard. Like looking at the list of guys, where do you put? Like, is Hoskins really going to bat below Hall, or like he was your two hole last year? Well, Kyle Schwarber's now you're going to be your two because you're not going to go righty righty. You're going to go righty lefty righty, and then I guess if JT has batted fifth in his career, especially with the Phillies, he's done that before. Do you
Hmm.
have a Bohm at three? Do you have a Hoskins at four? But then I think Hall drops too much. I think Hall opening day against a righty, I think he bats fourth. I'd have Reese at five, and then I guess Bohm at three or six. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean,
That's going to be an interesting question.
there's so many different aspects of this because one guy I don't think you can afford to drop down too low is JT Realmuto. I do like the thought of possibly throwing Boom in at that three spot. I think he looks good there, but I also don't love having to potentially drop. I don't want JT in the four. So if JT's not in the four and you're putting Bohm in the three, JT's five. I don't. I think out of all of those guys, as rough as it is to say because of experience, I think Hoskins is the guy I wouldn't mind putting a little bit lower in this lineup. I mean, if you want to do a JT Bohm in the four spot, I don't want to. I don't want to go to Reese Hoskins and have three righties in a row. So I would want to line, even though I would be confident with Derek Hall there in the five. I mean, I'm confident with there in the four, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue. But then, yeah, so you're dropping Reese Hoskins down. Who knows if they'll do that with Castellanos' ego. So maybe there's another, hey, now Castellanos is up at five and or six and Hoskins is down. So there's so many different aspects of it, but it depends on what you want to do with righty lefty splits. I think Rob Thompson has a serious. It's a good problem to have, but I think he has
Yeah.
a couple serious questions to answer here. It's a matter of is he okay with egos being hurt to make the best lineup here, or is he gonna value some experience when lining these guys up? And if he does, I can see Derek Hall maybe getting in there, but more likely down towards the 5-6 spot.
Yeah. Like you took the words right out of my mouth. It's a great problem to have, but look, this lineup is just so deep, and we didn't even talk about you know Harper. Like Harper's not even going to be here until
Mm-hmm.
July or June, or when Bryce Harper comes back. Well, now he's your three, and then now you got to rework it all over again. But what a great,
It's a great problem.
yeah, it's we went from Freddie Galvis and Cody Ashe and all these guys, and now we have Trey Turner, Schwarber, Castellanos, Harper, JT. Like,
What a change. Nice
yeah,
change of
what?
pace.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Dave Dombrowski, thank God you.
Yep. Well done, Dave. But yeah, we've been talking about Reese Hoskins. He's officially back for anyone who didn't know. Has had a couple starts here. Looks pretty good in his first game. Couple of hits. Looks confident in there. Not as good as second game, but hey, nice to have him back. He seemed like he was ready to go for a little bit, but they're trying to get him some extra reps. They said he was everywhere. He was nonstop working down in Clearwater. So it's good to see him back. Glad to see it. But then after that, another guy that I think kind of plays into the discussion with Bohm and Hall and DHs is Edmundo Sosa. Got hit in the forearm, has a little bit of tightness, but they're not too worried about it. He should recover pretty quickly, and he's playing like a starter. I mean, right now he's 6 for 14, 2 home runs, a 1458 OPS in his first couple of games here. I mean, this guy isn't looking like a utility player off the bench. He's looking like a top 10 starting third baseman. So I think he's going to start getting a lot of starts here the first couple months of the season, in my opinion, with Harper being out, giving guys like Bohm, Hoskins, maybe even Marsh talking about center field. Didn't have a great play out there with Nola's start. Really, Nola had an unfortunate inning, had to have 5 outs because Schwarber misplaying a ball, couldn't see it in the sun, and then Edmundo Sosa getting used to center field. But I mean, even get Marsh off his feet one day. Sosa, if he can continue to bat like this, he's going to find himself not really in the DH spot, but in the field, giving some other people some days off.
Yeah, Sosa has looked amazing, like truly. And it's funny you say that. I was at that game where Schwarber lost it in the sun, and then Sosa took a bad route and
Mm-hmm.
splits the gap. But he has looked great infield wise, and at the dish, he's who would have thought when
Right.
Dave Dombrowski made that trade last year? I was like, who is Edmundo
What was he
Sosa?
batting? 219? I mean, he just
Yeah, he was
he
awful.
that name popped up. I was like, why are we giving up anyone for this guy? I wasn't really aware of him outside of the hitting the umpire in the face play that was all over social media. But I mean, this guy really, you didn't see anything out of him except like, all right, when you brought back Freddie Galvis a couple years ago to have a nice glove in the field if you need to bring somebody on, especially with Alec Bohm's worries early on. But he's turning into a really good hitter, and I mean it's someone who I want to see him playing. Like I don't want to go a week without, like, spring training's awesome. I get to see him every other day right now. I don't want to go a week during the regular season right now without seeing Edmundo Sosa in the lineup.
The Yeah, I mean the power of Kevin Long. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he
Amazing.
did with his swing, but you know, Edmundo came onto the Phillies last year. I don't even know if he had a home run. And then he comes to the Phillies and he gets like five. And now
Yeah.
this year in the spring he has two already.
Mm-hmm.
And even with him being kind of thrown all over the place in the infield and then in the outfield a little bit, he hasn't let it affect his hitting, which we have seen over the years. That affects people's hitting. I mean, we saw it with maybe Stott a little bit. He played shortstop, and now he's a second baseman. We're kind of seeing a little bit right now. Getting used to the play of second base, but Sosa's just, for a guy that we have locked up for a very extended period of time right now. I mean, this guy could be a legitimate bench piece or starter whenever you need him. And if Mundo Sosa comes in to face a lefty and you take Stott out of the lineup late in the game, well, I'm not worried about that
Yeah.
because I know Sosa can play short or second or third or get a hit, get an RBI, or he's looking like he can do that, and he showed that last year when he got to Philadelphia, and making big plays in the playoffs. I mean, Edmundo Sosa makes that slide against the Cardinals. Smart base running. He's a smart baseball player, and he's a great defender. And as of right now, he's been a very solid, serviceable, better than hitter, and it's awesome to see because Mundo Sosa wasn't supposed to be this.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks really really good, and I think he's earning himself a lot of starts in the first couple weeks of the season. You saw it a little bit with Bryce Harper when he came back from his hit by pitch injury. You're hoping that, and again, it's a lot different when it's in the face and it's up at your head. It's a little scary, but hopefully he doesn't come back and gets a little nervous with the inside pitches. Don't see it happen a whole lot when it's something just like a forearm injury. But anytime you lose some time on the field because of a hit by pitch, you're worried that they're going to come back and be a little bit nervous. But yeah, he's looked really, really good. And like you said, man, this is not what we were expecting from this guy. And all the things we were expecting that are coming true with this team, and Mundo Sosa taking a step forward was not one of them. And it's a pleasant surprise. Before we get into the pitching staff and some of the bullpen performances we've seen, I guess we can round out the bench conversation. I think we might have found ourselves that last bench spot, and it doesn't really seem like it's much of a competition anymore. Talk about what you've seen from Jake Cave so far in this first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean Jake Cave, who's been a Minnesota Twin, I'm pretty sure his whole career. I mean, we pick him up, and I would say, okay, and now it's like, wow, we actually have that outfielder bench
I wrote
piece
him
that
off.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be DFA'd. Just
Mm-hmm.
bye, have fun in the next team. But
Yep.
Jake Cave is like, he is your legitimate bench piece outfielder. I mean, he is the Adam Duvall now to the Phillies. He is that guy that comes in and can make a catch in the outfield, and you don't have to worry about him screwing up anywhere. He's a veteran guy, and at the plate, he's looked solid. I mean, Jake Cave, he's only 30, even though he looks a lot older than he
Yeah.
does with the gray beard. I mean, when I first saw him, I thought he was at least 35, but he's 30 years old. He's a vet, and he's a good bench piece to have, especially when you look at the bench pieces that we already have been told about: Harrison, Hall, Sosa, and Stubbs. Well, now you have Jake Cave, who is actually an outfielder bench piece, which you didn't have maybe even a week ago, and now you found one, and he was right there in the system,
Yeah.
and you pick
I
him
mean,
up, and that's another one of those sneaky Dave Dombrowski moves.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's especially important that he's playing this well with how bad Dalton Guthrie's been in the outfield. He's only one hit so far in spring. Really thought, hey, this is a guy that they're going to give a chance to. But Kay's been amazing. He's played well in the outfield, which is what they're looking for. They're looking for at least one guy on this bench where if they can't trust what they have lined up in the outfield, and you need some guys to cover ground and be confident they can track a ball out there, he's going to be that guy. His bat's been electric. He's having the best spring of his career. Now, when I saw this so far, I was like, listen, he hasn't played well really in his career outside of his first couple of years. Let me kind of look back at what he normally does in spring. He's by far having his best spring of his career. He's batting 412. He has 2 home runs, 1385 OPS. I mean, he's just crushing the ball. And just like with Bohm, he's seeing it so well every time he comes up. You're like, man, why does this guy look like he could be a starter right now? I mean, he's gonna squeak in to be your last piece on the bench, and he's batting like this right now in spring. I mean, I got to see what he's got the rest of the spring to see if it's something that he's going to be able to sustain. Now, obviously, not a 412 average, 1385 OPS during the season. Trust me, we're not expecting that. But right now, he looks like what we were expecting Matt Joyce to be last year. I mean, and that's something that it'll scare a lot of people because, man, that didn't work out. But you're looking for a veteran outfielder to come in and be able to do a job if you have to throw him in late in game, or it's just to make a spot start every now and then. Come in, get some guy off their feet. Maybe we deal with a little bit of injuries, bad injury luck. He really hasn't given you anything to worry about from that standpoint. So it's been really exciting to watch him play so far.
Yeah, he's weirdly good right now, and I am not mad about it at all.
Yeah. Now, before we get to a lot of these younger guys we've been able to watch pitch there's been a few that have been really, really impressive. Unfortunately, likely not going to make a spot just because of how many good veterans we have in this bullpen. But Nolan Wheeler looked really, really fresh. We mentioned earlier, Nola really only had the one bad start so far, and he had to get 5 outs in the first inning. So not really bad in my eyes. He only let up one run there. But they both look really, really good, and most importantly really, really fresh, which was the worry coming off of the World Series. I mean, it seemed to play a little bit of role in the World Series, and then you think, all right, well, you were tired in the World Series, now you got a shortened off season. What are they going to look like? I think they both look pretty fresh so far in the small sample size we've seen them in.
Yeah, they definitely do, and it's awesome to see. Nola obviously. This is a contract year for him. That's what it's kind of looking like. He's going to be playing, without a deal, and we all know how that works out in sports. Guys on their contract deals, they tend to go crazy,
Yep.
and we've seen that before, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time we see it. But
Yeah, listen, I guess I'll take a World Series MVP from Aaron Nola, in his last year with Philly if it's the case. I'll allow it. It can happen.
yeah, I mean, I'll be okay with that. Finally getting one. But I
Yeah.
mean, we haven't even got to see much. We First of all, we haven't seen any of Ranger Suarez. We saw one outing of Taiwan Walker, but Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, those are your guys. I mean, those are your ace one and ace two, and to see them go out there handle business, you know, it's expected, but it's also a breath of fresh, a, bre- a
You got
breath
it.
of fresh
You
air.
got
Yeah,
it. Yeah, no,
it's
definitely.
nice to see.
They look really, really good. And you mentioned the only other guy we've seen was Walker. Didn't look too great, but hey, you know what Taiwan Walker is going to be. So I'm not sitting here when you're bringing your veterans in. There's certain things you're looking at, like I just mentioned with Nolan Wheeler coming off a World Series run. You're looking at they look like they're fatiguing it all because of that long run and that short off season. It doesn't look like it. Taiwan Walker, he's a veteran. He's coming in. I could really care less what he looks like in spring unless he gets absolutely lit up, which I mean didn't look great in his first start, but nothing to really worry about. Still waiting to see Ranger Suarez. But yeah, so far the only thing in that starting rotation you're worried about is that fifth starter race. So I think it's really good to see these two guys, healthy and fresh because you're going to need them this season if you're going to try and
Yeah,
make another rush. Because you think about it, with this team you won't. Okay, you added Turner, but with this team you barely squeaked into the playoffs. Forget the whole World Series run, which was great. They barely squeaked into the playoffs. So you have to be better during the regular season, and if you're going to be better, you have to at least carry over your successes. And part of that huge success was Wheeler and Nola. But that's kind of the wrap up on the starters. If we want to start getting into the bullpen, I think kind of with what I mentioned earlier with expecting certain things from your veterans, a lot of the guys came in looked good. Alvarado, Kimbrel, we got Gregory Soto officially reporting over to Clearwater now. He fixed his visa issues. So I think a lot of these guys, it's nice to see them having success. None of them are really looking worrisome. So that's good. But one of the guys that high on, and I'm so excited to see what he's able to do this year without any pressure on him, is Connor Brogdon. He looks absolutely disgusting so far. His changeup is so filthy, and he's putting the ball where he wants to put it. 3 innings pitched so far, not a hit allowed, 4 strikeouts. I mean, he's locating fastball well. Changeup looks great. Off speed looks great. It's going to come down to what the issue was last year, but him being in his own head. I think if he shows that he can be resilient, he can be confident. He can be confident. He can be confident. He can be a very valuable piece out of this bullpen whenever you don't want to have to spare one of your, whenever you don't want to put in one of your high leverage vets. So I think so far what we've seen from him has been very, very promising.
yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's all about confidence with this guy, and we saw it a little bit last year. He looked solid during points of the season, and then he would get rocked, and then there's the
Yeah.
confidence, and then he would struggle. But Conor Brogdon's been a guy in the he's been around for a little bit now, and he's seen some ups and he's seen some downs, and he's had some himself. And it's finally nice to see him get a little more confidence, in him. We have so many veteran guys now that I'm sure they're telling him a lot of stuff. They're kind of like chirping in his ear a little bit. You got Craig Kimbrell, you got Matt Strom, who I also thought looked pretty solid
He looked
the
good.
game that I saw him in. And then you have your other guys. You have Alvaro, you have Durant, you have Soda now. So Brogdon. I'm sure we'll see him a lot more towards the back end of spring training because we kind of know who Connor Brogdon is. But you know, it's nice to see. It's nice to see a competent bullpen for once.
Yeah.
With him was what 2 years ago. He was our one of our top two guys. Him and
Hmm.
Alvarado were both at the time not very good. I mean, it's nice to have Connor Brogdon tucked away in the back of that bullpen, to where if you need him to, shut the door or come in for a bad start, I have full confidence that Connor Brogdon can shut down guys for at least 2 or 3 innings, and that's kind of what he's been a lot for, his time here with the Phillies.
Yeah, and we mentioned the veteran presence in that bullpen. It's good for a lot of things. You love bringing in some good veterans when you have some young players because there's a lot they can teach them about their game. But what I think is going to be more important with Connor Brogdon is guys like Craig Kimbrell, Matt Strom, they're gonna teach this guy how to deal with the highs and lows of being a bullpen pitcher. I mean, it happens to everybody. You come in for one inning, you get rocked. Maybe the next game you get rocked again, and all of a sudden you're being labeled as a terrible relief pitcher. It's not an easy game mentally to deal with. So I think this could really benefit him. We have a lot of good guys, in that bullpen, a lot of good guys in that with the coaching staff. I think they've built such a good environment that it can really help him when it comes to dealing with the highs and lows of a 162 game season. So I'm pretty confident with him. A couple years ago I had a hot take that in either 2 to 3 years he was going to be our best reliever. Now with Sir Anthony coming back and all these veteran pieces, it doesn't look like that'll be the case. But I'm really really high on this guy. So I'm excited to see what he does coming into this season because like we said, he's not all eyes aren't going to be on him. He's going to have I think he's going to have a sneaky good season, and I'm excited to see it. But before we get into them last bullpen pieces, kind of wanted to touch on some of our other younger arms that we've been excited to see. Mick Abel only had one inning, but I thought looked really, really good. No strikeouts, but young guy, not expecting to see him this year, and I thought he looked good. He went out and did what I was hoping he would do as one of our young prospects. So I was excited to see him out there. Griff McGarry, not as good. He's really, really struggled. But I mean, his biggest issue right now is locating his stuff. I heard Rob Thompson with an interview in the middle of one of the innings, and he talked about. He's like, "Look, this is a guy that we've seen be really, really successful down in the minors. He's a guy we've seen be really, really successful during spring training, outside of the games. Sometimes when you go in there, you got a little bit of jitters. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna mess with your location. You're not gonna hit the spots you want to hit, and that was the obvious case with Griff McGarry. He just really was all over the place, but his stuff still looked great. I mean, I'm not too overly worried about him long term. There's been talks about possibly seeing him come in and play a part in that bullpen if need be. But I mean, he didn't really get rocked. He just walked a lot of guys. I mean, he blew Rafael Devers out of the water. I mean, that strikeout. Oh man, Devers was falling to his knees. He was smoking him with the fastball. So I thought he looked really really good from a stuff standpoint. He just really couldn't. He really couldn't catch a break with picking a spot. So a couple those young guys I thought were ultimately bright signs. And again, McGarry, we'll see him a few more times, and hopefully he's able to bounce back there.
Yeah, I saw Abel pitch. Uh, Unfortunately, I was on a plane when McGarry pitched, or McGriff pitched, so I couldn't see him. But from everything that I've been seeing on Twitter, and Twitter's the world of
Mm-hmm.
everything. You can find anything on Twitter from anyone, and Abel was a first round pick, and he looked solid. He did.
Yeah.
He looked solid. He had some stuff, but some of these guys will have to be working in the minors, and I'm sure they will. We have a better guys down low than we ever have had in the past couple of years. So, but yeah, I don't know too much about these guys. I know a little bit. I you know it's really the eye test with me,
Yeah.
and if I can't watch, then it's kind of tough to really put my own little spin on it. But from what I saw from Mick Gable, I mean, I was excited to watch him actually come into the game, and a couple of my friends were like, "Why are you so excited to watch Mick
Hmm.
Gable pitch?" I'm like, "Oh, he's like our first round pick from a couple years ago. Like, he's pretty solid, and it was cool to see him. And
Yeah.
obviously, I wanted to see Painter, but this whole injury thing. So him and Abel are the two guys from when I really, really, really started paying attention, to the draft during like those years of nothing else going on. These guys were drafted to the Phillies organization, and that's really what when I started watching. Abel again solid, but it's about the eye test, and I'll see more, when he pitches more.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been paying attention to these guys pitch down in the minors a little bit. I'll say these two. I'll say these things to leave it off. Mick Abel, I was higher on him coming out of the draft than I was Andrew Painter. By no means does that mean he's going to be as good as Andrew Painter. Andrew Painter has taken a lot of steps over the past couple of seasons since getting drafted, but Mick Abel's he's a stud. I mean, his stuff is great. He throws hard. What we saw from him, good sign. Again, only one inning, but again, just being able to see him come up and now being able to see him in a Phillies uniform, it's like, man, I'm so excited for him to make his way. Really hope we don't trade him because I'm really high on him. And Griff McGarry, guys, don't lose hope on this guy. I mean, no one ever does fully after a couple outings in spring, but this guy's going to be really, really good for someone. It'd be cool if it was us. If not, I'm sure he'll have success somewhere else, but he I think he's going to be really, really good. I'm not too worried about the location struggle. It's a little bit of jitters. I'm excited to see him in his next couple of outings here. But lastly, we're talking about these guys, a few bullpen pieces that have been really, really good to start out. Started with Michael Plassmeyer. I mean, he was name dropped when Thompson was talking about that fifth starter role, and I kind of rolled my eyes. I was very excited to see what he would do, especially getting mentioned in there, but I didn't think he was going to have a chance to compete for that role, which I still don't see it as a realistic option. But he's looked great. 5.1 innings pitched, 4 hits allowed, 2 Ks, no earned runs, and a 1.03 whip. I mean, 1.13 whip. So it looks really good so far, and obviously a nice little chunk of sample size there, at least considering everyone else. I believe he has the most innings pitched out of all of our pitchers so far this spring, but he's looked really, really great with no earned runs allowed so far. What have you thought of him?
Yeah, I believe he pitched yesterday, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure he pitched
Yeah.
yesterday. Watching a little bit of that game, he did look solid. I mean, he didn't allow a run, so that's really all you can ask for from a guy in your system, coming up and pitching well, and with the biggest sample size of any of these pitchers that we've had so far, to not allow a run. I mean, a lot of our other guys have allowed runs, and
Yeah.
some guys look really not good, and some guys look really really solid. And he's one of these guys that have looked very solid so far. And you can't just say, "Oh, it was an inning. Oh, it was 1/3 of an inning." It's the most innings out of any of our
Yeah.
pitchers so far. So seeing stuff like that, maybe he gets a call up to the bullpen at some point, or who
Yeah.
really knows? I mean, we know he can obviously pitch well and against starting caliber players because he pitched yesterday to start the game. So it's not like he was playing
Against the
the
back end
Johan
young guys. Yeah.
Rojas. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
pitching against Adley Rushman in the first two at bats of his day. So it's
Yeah,
nice
I
to
believe
see.
all of his outings have come in the beginning of games. So that's a very good point there. That hey,
Yeah,
he's versing some quality hitters there and has been shutting them down. For anybody who thinks it might not be good enough and it's so little, just think I would take out of every single starter, every single pitcher we have in this roster. If you came in and started a game for me, went 5 1/3 innings with no earned runs, are you kidding me? Think about it like that, and put all of them together. He's looked pretty good, and I'm excited to see what he does the rest of spring because he's gonna. It seems like he's going to be getting a lot of them innings. I mean, has he gone into the third inning in any of these games? I believe he's gone two in most of them. I don't think he's
Yeah, I don't
touched the
think he went
third.
3 yesterday.
Yeah, but I mean, he's getting at least 2 innings in every start. So I'm excited to see what they do for him with him moving forward. Another guy that has just been absolutely lights out, just so eye opening. Andrew Vasquez. I mean, 3.2 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts over that time. He's had I've been scribbling all over, but no earned runs and a whip under one. I mean, he looks really good. And the biggest thing when watching him is just he just looks absolutely filthy. I mean, his stuff looks gross. And obviously he's missing bats, 7 strikeouts in just under 4 innings pitched. I mean, this is a guy that if you ever run into any issues with, a righty pitcher up in the, or even one of the lefties, we have so many up in that bullpen where someone's hurt, someone's not playing well, whatever, this guy is throwing lights out. And similar to Plasmeyer, he's not getting these late outings. He's coming in relatively early against good competition and just looks absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about innings pitched and
Mm-hmm.
7 strikeouts in 4 innings, and for a guy that doesn't have the Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, type of innings on his resume,
Yeah.
it's it's just always great to find new, and that's what spring training is. It's always finding diamonds in the rough, and we might have found a couple with our bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Mundo Sosa now looks like one of those guys where he's just been insane. Jake Cave is another one, but it's nice to see actual good, guys from your system play well enough against actual MLB players, not other minor leaguers that are up just because it's spring training, but actual MLB talent that will be playing 160 games this season and 150 games, and these guys are coming in and they're shoving and they're
Mm-hmm.
showing lights out. And it's nice to see.
Yeah, those two look really good. Another guy that's caught my eye, McKinley Moore, just under 3 innings pitched, 3 strikeouts, no earned runs. Looks really good. I mean, he's a guy that hasn't necessarily blown me away with his stuff, but is out here getting results. All three of these guys, no runs allowed, which I mean, it feels like it's spring training, but it feels like we've been giving up spring training runs at like an all-time high with some of the outings we've seen. So for these guys to come in and constantly shut the door has been a pleasant surprise, and especially because most of them are young, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we're this close to baseball, I mean, we technically have some baseball now with the World Baseball Classic, but
Which I will be tuning into every single minute of, or at
yeah,
least for the
I'm
USA.
partial.
The other games I'm going to try and catch when I can, but
It's just so hard with these games at like 6 in the
yeah,
morning. Like
yeah,
last night,
right,
the first game didn't start till 11
yeah,
in Billings in Cuba. And old
yeah. I believe one of
friend
the
Didi Gregorius run.
yeah. I mean, Japan, I believe, is 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, so I'm cool enough. I'm going to be at work starting at that time, so I'm just going to flip them on. But yeah, this has been really exciting to see from these guys. Last guy I'll kind of talk about, not as good of a start with his most previous outings, but a guy I'm really high on and expecting to be good in the future, Andrew Baker. I mean, his when I hadn't had a chance to watch him pitch a lot before this spring, but his first outing, I mean, went an inning with 2 strikeouts and just looked so dominant. I mean, this was a guy I was ready to put on that, Vasquez Plasmeyer level after his first outing. He looked so good. Just stuff was electric, and struggled a little bit after that second game, let up 3 straight walks to start the outing. Not great, obviously. Couldn't really locate his stuff. Then let up a double, and everyone's like, "Oh man, here we go, spring training." Boring inning where we just get absolutely lit up. But after those 3 walks and a double, got 3 straight ground outs. Let the first one let the guy on third score. Second one let the guy that was on second score. So it's like they all came in, but then finished it off with another ground out. So he 3 walks, double, and then 3 straight ground outs. Just really didn't have his stuff to start the inning, and kind of found himself after that. The tale of two halves there with that inning for him. He just didn't. He just couldn't really locate to start, similar to kind of how McGarry was when he came out for his first outing. But then I believe his only other outing was yesterday or the day before to yeah, I think it was yesterday to end the game. Came in, let up a walk, a hit, and then a home run to end it. So not a great start from him, but still a guy that I'm keeping my eyes on, because after that first start, you could tell he has the stuff. He just needs to be confident. He's got to put it in the place he wants to put it. But he's a guy I'm really excited for, and honestly, remember the name, because he's going to be a guy you might see up in this bullpen the next couple of years. We're going to kind of stray away from these veteran guys that we're going to be throwing money at, because we have some good young talent coming up.
Yeah, definitely. And
Mm-hmm.
it's always nice to have extra bullpen pieces lying around, especially within your farm that you don't have to pay millions and millions and millions of dollars to.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
we have Soto, uh, Sir Anthony, and Alvarado locked up now for a
Yeah.
while.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be nice to have those guys who are still going to be your flamethrowers, and then
Mm-hmm.
have some other guys come up every now and then from your farm, and always nice to have that. It's all
Yeah, I mean, all honesty, it's something they've tried to do for a while, is grow some young arms from the farm, and it hasn't been successful. That's why they're going out and they're trying to get these proven vets, because they're like, look, we tried the whole bring in young guys to come in and lock down some innings, and it hasn't worked. So I think that's going to change a little bit over the next couple of years. Don't have to worry about it this year, thankfully, because we have some great arms out there. But yeah, some guys that I'm still really excited to see take a couple more innings down there. I guess before we shut it down, I kind of wanted to get your opinion on this. What have it's a couple weeks into spring training. What has been your initial impression of the pitch clock?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about it as a fan. I
Mm-hmm.
think as like the game, it makes it faster, which for the younger fan is better, I guess. It'll never go down to college or high school or little league
Mm-hmm.
though, so they'll always have the same rules that baseball has always had. I think as like a fan aspect of it though, I don't love it. I like going to Citizens Bank Park for an extended period of time. You know, be able to grab a beer in the fifth inning, and we're like 2 hours in, and now it's like, okay, well the game's ending at 2 hours and 30 minutes, 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it's just gonna feel too much of it is like speeding up, and I enjoy just sitting there and eating a hot dog and grabbing a beer and grabbing and talking to my friends and watching baseball. I mean, that's what I like to do. I like to watch as much baseball as I possibly can, especially the Phillies. And I feel like this pitch clock is taking a little bit of that, away from us, where it's, you enjoy some of the things that these pitchers do, where they check the guy over at first 1,000 times, and they finally get that pick off. Well, now you can't do
Mm-hmm.
that because you can only throw it over once.
Yeah.
And I don't know. How do you feel about it?
It's you know what you bring up an interesting perspective. I've kind of viewed this all baseball wise, but yeah, I mean, I guess you're getting your hot dogs and food before the game starts now, and getting your beers as the vendors are walking down the aisle there, because you're not gonna be. I mean, I feel like I miss a lot of time normally when I go and get a beer. It's gonna be rough now because the game's moving so fast, but I think there's a few different parts of this. You look at a player, longevity thing. I wonder how it's going to affect players over the course of the season. I mean, you think about it, that's less time they're spending out there in the sun, something they're getting a taste of now in spring. But hey, it's hot in the summer. You got to sit out
Yeah,
there and deal with that sun for sometimes over 3 hours. I think it can help from that standpoint, but overall, I don't mind it. I mean, I'm a baseball guy. I prefer I don't mind the long games. I actually love it. Like I love being able to kind of just sit through a 3 hour game and enjoy the slower pace, but in my opinion, great action. So I think it's going to be do good to kind of keep other people invested, especially people at home. When you're at the ballpark, it seems like it's less of an issue. You're kind of just taking everything in, but it's definitely going to make it a better watch for less, diehard baseball fans at home. But something we've seen so far with the pitch clock that has been kind of worrisome. The MLB needs to consider taking the pitch clock out in the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning. I think the pitch clock is really, really good to kind of speed up the pace of the game. Yes, Tate, you want to have people stay interested over, what is a 9 inning game at least. But this is what it was for. It was to speed up the game. Now they're getting it kind of mixed up, and they're seeing it now, and I hope they make a move on it because some people are starting to talk about it. But the pitch clock was meant to speed up the game, not determine the outcome of it. I mean, we saw in that one Braves game where it was bottom of the ninth inning, they had bases loaded, and then they struck a guy out because he ran out of the pitch clock. Now, ultimately, when you're looking at what this pitch clock is going to do, when you said, hey, we want to put in this pitch clock, had nothing to do with the game of baseball. It had everything to do with getting your ratings up. It had everything to do with making more people entertained and less bored by the game of baseball. What do you think that's going to do if you start ending games because someone took a half second too long to look up at the pitcher, or the pitcher had to switch their sign because they didn't want to let up a grand slam in the bottom of the ninth, so they wanted to make sure they got their perfect pitch? I mean, I think it's good for the game for the most part, but I think it needs to come out towards the end of the games because I know some of the best moments in baseball history have come over longer periods of time. I mean, the amount of times I've sat back and watched that Bryce Harper home run against San Diego, it took about 2 to 3 minutes to throw that pitch. It felt like. I mean, no, not the. I think the San Diego one, it was longer. But what I'm thinking of was the his first at bat in the World Series when they came back to Philly. His first home run in Game 3. I mean, that whole it was the long intro. It was the pitcher stepping off, him calling time. It was a long thing, and it built up to that home run, which was so cool. So I think and more than that, yeah, you don't want to rush the results of the game. You want to speed up the game, but you don't want to determine the outcome of it. So there's a lot in there what I just said, but most of all, it's speeding up the game. I don't think it's going to hurt it too much, but it will if it's not taken out of the last 3 innings.
Yeah, and that's something that I didn't even think about. I, that you're right. If it's bases loaded, 2 outs, 3-2, and Bryce Harper's up to the plate, and he gets called out because he's adjusting his shoe or whatever. Well, if we lose a game like that, that defeats the purpose. Like what? Like, well, now I'm left pissed
Yeah.
personally. Like, why would I want that to happen? You have one of the best players in baseball up at the plate, and this could go for any team. You can fill in that with Manny Machado, or Ronald Acuna, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, anybody. If they're up the plate, and these superstar players, they've had a routine since they were like 10, 12 years old, and if they're rushed to do it, and they're rushed into the box, and they're not completely ready yet, and they call time, they're not granted time because you're not allowed to call time or something like that anymore. Well, that defeats the purpose. Like, now you're determining the outcome. Imagine if that comes in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, imagine if it's 3-2. Bryce Harper comes to the plate. He has 2 strikes on him, and because he's not in the box yet, he gets called third strike, and now we lose, and we might not even make the World Series.
Yeah.
So I do like that rule. Hopefully, you know, it doesn't have to, we don't ever have to see that here. I'm sure it will definitely happen in, in games this season, but I don't know. It's going to be it's going to take some getting used to for everybody because when the game's at 7 o'clock and I'm expecting to leave around 10:30, and I'm
Yeah.
leaving the stadium at 9:15, 9:30. Well, now I just went to a Sixers game because it's
Yeah.
literally that's exactly what it is. And
Yeah,
sometimes I just like to sit there, clear my head, and enjoy some food and a good baseball team.
it's very
With
therapeutic for
whether
real
it's
baseball
girlfriend or
fans.
family.
Hmm.
Yeah, it,
Yeah. But it's funny. It's funny you mentioned the Sixers because that's kind of like what this is. When you compare pitch clocks and shot clock is much different than a pitch clock. Like, yeah, it affects the game in basketball because there's a time limit on the game. There's this much time you can't just run around with the ball and not give the ball back. And also, it's hey, you gotta be able to get a shot off in 24 seconds, and you have to think of something creative in that span of time rather than just tire somebody out for a while. That's not what this is about in baseball. This is about speeding up the game so it doesn't take 3 minutes in between pitches. That's what this is. So having a rule that's in place for the biggest moments part of the game. Like I've heard people come out and say, "Oh, it needs to be out in the ninth inning. Oh, it needs to be out in the." I think the seventh, eighth, and ninth cannot have this. That's still 2/3 of a baseball game that you have a pitch clock on, which is going to reduce the time by a lot. And I mean, you saw how short all these games are. It feels like it's a blink of an eye. But I said it earlier. It's kind of the quote I'm going to be riding throughout this whole pitch clock thing. The pitch clock is meant to speed up the outcome of the game, not determine it. So I think they gotta realize this. I'm hoping they're talking about it after that Braves game because that's something that if that would have happened in a regular season game, even as a Phillies fan, looking at the Braves, they would have been like, ha ha ha. But it's still like, no, for baseball, that's terrible. Like you want to see the batter even either come through with a big hit to walk it off, or the pitcher to have ice in his veins and get out of that spot. Not a time to go 0-2-1 and up you got bailed, you're out of it. No, that's terrible. It's something that I can at least see them getting rid of in the ninth inning, but I think they should eliminate it in the seventh, eighth, and ninth. And all honesty, even the playoffs, because trust me, anyone who is going to a playoff game or watching a playoff game, they like baseball and they could really give two craps about it taking a little bit when it could result in you winning a World Series. The other thing you mentioned, kind of because I know a lot of people seem to be confused about it, is the pickoff rules. I'd be watching some broadcasts where these are people that are supposed to know what they're talking about. Be like pickoffs. I would just go get like an extra 2-step lead and just go. Like you can't pick. Yeah, you can still get picked off. You have two disengagements, and then after that, your disengagement needs to result in an out. So it was so funny to listen to a bunch of these games, the announcers not knowing what they're talking about because they're going on like, oh, they can run, they can run. Yeah, they can run, but if they have like a extra 3-step lead, like all the pitcher has to do is step off and get him out. Like, so I think it's going to take a lot of time for people to kind of get down with these rules, but that's actually something I'm really, really excited for because that you know creates a little bit of a chess match. The guy's going to want to get a bigger step because he knows, hey, he can't he needs to get me out if he has to pick me off again. But at the same time, you get that extra step, that gives you an even more of a chance to get the guy out. So we've really only seen it once where they used two disengagements. I think Andrew Painter used it in his start. I think it was back-to-back pitches too, but it almost got him. Honestly, I was at a point where I wanted him to use that third one because I thought he would have had him. But that's something that I actually think could create a lot of interesting like I said, like a little chess match piece. You got coaches, you got managers deciding whether it's worth the risk. But yeah, do you have anything else on either, the new rules? I know we got the new bases that oh, okay. I guess I'll get into that because I've also been pretty passionate about this. I love the new bases because it seems like it is so hard to come by a double play anymore. Like I'm watching these games and there's like routine ground balls. I'm like, oh, there's a double play, and we got slow guys beating them out because it's that much less they have to run. So I think that's could be really really cool for the game. Obviously, double plays are great. Not when you hit them into them, but they're good to get out of jams. But these bases are making it to the point where it's like, look, you need a clean, smooth, fast turn if you want to knock these guys out. So that's another thing. I've been pleased with the new base sizes.
yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because even with the new bigger bases, you still can't run on JT.
Yep, still
And
can't
the
run.
fact that I can't believe Nick Maton went. I can't believe it. I'm
uh,
like, dude, you were literally his teammate for
yeah,
years. Why were you running on JT?
yeah. He
But
got
yeah,
he
you're
got
right.
really
I mean,
upset
there's a
about.
lot of there's a lot of times where you think, oh, all right, double play, and
Yeah.
this bigger dude is running down the first base and he beats it out by a step and a half, and I'm like, hmm,
Yeah,
all right,
with that said, I'm very glad, and I've been very pleased to see what we've had from Alec Bohm, Trey Turner, and Bryson Stott from those double plays, and with Stott and
yeah,
Turner working extra on them double plays. Because with that, yeah, double plays are going to be harder to come by. But I love this infield. I think Bohm, while still isn't perfect, he's got a really strong arm. So if I think we have a kind of infield that will be able to move past that struggle. But I love it so far. I think it's, as a baseball guy, changes aren't necessarily something I get excited about, but this is something I'm excited about because that just means more chances for batters coming up with runners on. So I've been pleased with that so far. But
and we
other
just
than that, yeah, did you have anything else on any of the new rule changes or even, any of these other guys we've seen so far?
no, I think that's it. We pretty much hit on everything that we kind of wanted to talk about. So
Yeah, and trust me, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of good, a lot of bad, and I can't wait. It's only been 2 weeks so far. We still got a good amount of time until opening day, which again I can't wait for. But I've also been very very happy with what we've seen in spring.
yeah, no, this has been real fun and
Yeah,
experience. All these rule changes and to experience Trey Turner live and in person as of right now. It just makes me as a baby much more excited about it. And, you know, I can't wait until the season's actually underway. And this World Baseball Classic is really going to put me in even more of a baseball mood, especially with, the Flyers out of it and the Sixers
yeah,
playing kind of meaningless basketball games at this point. Embiid might make a late push for the MVP, even though he won't ever win it.
yeah,
But
because they hate him.
who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, but that's a
yeah,
topic for another day. I
but
could
hey,
I could talk about Embiid versus
mhm.
Jokic and Giannis, Tatum, and whoever for like 10 hours, but I
Yep.
won't.
But
I
hey,
won't.
Saturday at 9 p.m. Schwarber, Turner, and JT are playing some meaningful baseball. So I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm hyped for it.
Yep.
But if that's it, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching the Broad Street Boys podcast. Make sure to subscribe to both channels, 4for4 Philly Fan Podcast. That is my channel, and Tim Talks Philly. That is his channel right there. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. We are out.
Yep.
Peace.
Talk to you guys later.